Good afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to resume our program for today. I hope you all enjoyed your lunches. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. From One King West Hotel in downtown Toronto, welcome to the continuation of the 112th season of the Empire Club of Canada. For those of you just joining us, either through our webcast, our podcast, or on Rogers TV, welcome to the meeting. Before our distinguished speaker is introduced today, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our head table guests. I would ask that each guest rise for a brief moment and be seated as your name is called. At this point, I would typically ask the audience to refrain from applauding until all head table guests have been introduced, but I know from experience that nobody ever listens to that. So, feel free to applaud as people stand. First, I'd like to... Thank you. We can applaud for that, too. First, our guest of honor, Mr. William Charnetski, Chief Health Innovation Strategist for Ontario. Ms. Lasha Babiak, Executive Director, Worldwide Government Affairs and Policy, Johnson & Johnson. Mr. Rafi Hofstein, President and CEO, Mars Innovation, and a member of the Ontario Health Innovation Council. A good friend and former colleague, Ms. Nicole Decourt, Vice President, Government Affairs, MEDAC. Ms. Verity Sylvester, Vice President of Corporate Accounts at CMC and a past President of the Empire Club of Canada. Mr. Paul Bradley, Vice President, Strategic Affairs, Johnson & Johnson Medical Companies, and the Chair of MEDAC. Ms. Sarah Friesen, Consultant Friesen Concepts, member of the Ontario Health Innovation Council. Ms. Marion McDonald, Assistant Deputy Minister, Supply Chain Ontario. And once again, my name is Paul Foglin. I am the Vice President of Government Relations and Communications with the Ontario Retirement Communities Association and the first Vice President of the Empire Club of Canada. It's a long title. Ladies and gentlemen, your head table. And one last thing, before I begin my introduction, I do want to acknowledge that Bill's parents are with us today at table 5. No need to stand, but let's give them a hand. So in a room full of innovators and health technology leaders, chances are there are probably a few Star Wars fans amongst us in the room. So I would be remiss if I didn't take the time to acknowledge that today is May the 4th. And on that note, may the 4th be with you. Thank you. Work with me, folks. Down to serious business. This past Friday at the Empire Club, we had the privilege of hosting the Honourable Navdeep Bains, Federal Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development. Minister Bains delivered an impassioned speech focused on why innovation matters and the importance of Canada becoming a global leader in innovation. I quote, "Given the confluence of global trends, it is frankly our duty to act, and act now. Our responsibility is to make a bold bet on innovation, because at the end of the day, innovation isn't an end unto itself. It is a path to growth, a stronger middle class, and good quality jobs. That's why innovation matters." So while it's very encouraging to know the federal government is back in the innovation game, here in Ontario, the provincial government has recognized the value of innovation as an economic driver for many years, in particular, the potential of the health technology sector. This government's commitment to the sector moved from talk to action in November of 2013, when the ministries of Research and Innovation, Health and Long-Term Care, and Government and Consumer Services banded together to form the Ontario Health Innovation Council, or OHIC. OHIC was comprised of experts from the healthcare, research, industry, and not-for-profit sectors, many of which we are welcome to have with us here today. The Council was tasked by government to provide strategic advice on how Ontario can achieve its full potential as a major centre for the development and adoption of health technologies. On December of 2014, OHIC released their highly anticipated report to numerous accolades from the health technology sector. The report was a call to action, a blueprint for how Ontario can best achieve the objectives laid out by government. It contained 6 recommendations, the first of which was to establish an office of the Chief Health Innovation Strategist. The mandate of this office would be to provide the leadership to make Ontario a major centre for health technology by working with government and other stakeholders to identify health system priorities and population needs and work to align innovation efforts with these priorities and needs. By May of 2015, the Ontario government had committed to implementing all of the OHIC recommendations, and on September 10th of 2015, Mr. William Charnetski was appointed as Ontario's first ever Chief Health Innovation Strategist. Mr. Charnetski, or Bill as he prefers, is an accomplished national and global executive who has worked in the highest levels of business, law, and government. He has spent more than 10 years working on integrated health solutions in Canada and around the world. Bill most recently worked in the United Kingdom with AstraZeneca, one of the world's largest innovative pharmaceutical companies. Bill has also been a partner at the esteemed law firm Torys LLP and worked as an aide to well-regarded federal ministers Bill Graham and Allan Rock. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Ontario's Chief Health Innovation Strategist, Mr. Bill Charnetski, to the podium.
So good afternoon, everybody, and for those watching abroad, thank you for tuning in. It's humbling to be in front of you all. I don't say that as a throwaway. As many of you know who have seen me speak before in the past 6 months, I don't mind doing this. I've never seen a mic I didn't like, so I'm fine. And I was fine until about 40 minutes ago when they asked me to sign the Red Book at the Empire Club, which has, it's quite incredible, it has the signatures of all previous speakers. And so they included Winston Churchill and Ronald Reagan and every prime minister. I don't think Justin Trudeau's been here yet. I take some comfort from the fact that I didn't recognize some of those names. So someone in the future will look at my name and think, I don't know who that guy is. But look, Navdeep Bains was here. All right. Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate the brevity. I do not look forward to that part of any presentation I make. I don't like hearing people talk about me, so thank you for being succinct. And it's also great. Paul was in the office of the Honourable Deb Matthews when Minister Matthews was Health Minister, so he was actually at his job when the Ontario Health Innovation Council was created, so that's a nice coincidence. It's a privilege to be here in front of you. As I said, the list of people that came before me is quite impressive. I've seen a number of them, certainly not Winston Churchill, but I've seen lots of impactful speeches, so it is truly humbling to be here. And having just returned from London, England, where I was for 3 years, coming to present at something called an Empire Club has a whole new connotation. Generally positive, not entirely so. I'll tell you spend a little bit of time in Britain and you're reminded that you were part of a colony or something that was a colony once. I think in the eyes of many Brits, they think we still are a colony. We've come a long way in 125-ish years. I am Ontario's first Chief Health Innovation Strategist, and I love this job. I love the job. You know, most importantly, I believe we can move the needle in using that $52 billion investment of your money into our healthcare system as an economic driver. So Minister Bains was here last week. What an amazing message to have from your federal government. We have the same message from Ontario, more particularized when it comes to health innovation. We'll talk about that today. But this is important stuff. It's important. It's not just important for us. It's important for our children. And like many of you in the audience, I have my oldest child has just turned 16, and we're in that place where we're starting to talk about universities and more knowledgeably about career choices. The world is a very competitive one for top talent, particularly when it comes to innovation-oriented industries. And it's really important that in Ontario we are able to compete and compete to win in that environment, and not just for us, but for our kids. I'm going to talk about three things today. First, really just expand a little bit on what Minister Bains talked about. Why does innovation matter? Really, what is the innovation imperative? The second will be what our team at Ontario, at the Office of the Chief Health Innovation Strategist, our merry band of warriors, is going to do to help drive the adoption and diffusion of innovation in our province. And then lastly, I have 3 pretty important announcements about how exactly and quite particularly we're going to do that. So why does innovation matter? Why is it critical? It can be quite succinctly put, I think. Countries that innovate prosper. Those that don't decline. And people far more eloquent than I am are able to and have articulated that imperative crisply. Minister Bains, I'd love when Zaina and I are on the same panel because she does a much greater job of this than I do. But there are lots of examples of how this happens. Think post-World War II, when the United States leveraged a massive investment for very important reasons in innovative defense work and how that drove them to be the largest and most powerful economy in the world. More recently, the Asian tigers in Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea, all really showed examples of how the public and the private sector working together in a focused way on a few particular important priorities can truly grow their economies in a meaningful way, in a step change kind of way. And it happens to even subnational regions. 40 or 50 years ago, did anyone know what Silicon Valley was? Was it even a thing? And Boston was an amazing place to visit if you wanted a history lesson and could see some really cool and important universities. I just got back from Detroit and Cleveland. So about the time that's how we viewed Silicon Valley and Boston, I learned that Detroit and Cleveland, respectively, were the 5th and 7th most populous cities in the United States. Pretty amazing, right? The upward and the downward trends really, not solely, but I think primarily can be attributed to industries that adopted, that innovated and changed, as opposed to those that didn't. So today, if you look at the global environment, it's increasingly competitive, as I said, and Minister Bains talked about this. Rapidly changing technology plus globalization is meaning a reshaping of the global economy, and we're not immune from that in Ontario. In the past, we were dependent on manufacturing and natural resources, still very important industries, but I think there's a common realization now that we're not going to win in an environment characterized by a race to the bottom in wages and purely based on low-cost production. So these will continue to be important. But if we're going to grow this province and leave it one that will be healthy and happy and prosperous for our children, it's going to come out of competing and winning in the knowledge-based economy. And you can't do that if you don't innovate. So where quality and, frankly, stability and pace matter, we will win. But to do that, we need to innovate. So why do we actually have any of this refocus? Like why? So okay, you're telling us it's important, but really, so I get the kids. That's nice. People say that all the time. But why does it explain this to me? So since 2008, the recovery from the global recession has been pretty sluggish, right? And we're not immune from that part of it either. And it's exacerbated our fiscal pressures. And frankly, a lot of those great programs to which we've been accustomed are under threat. So stronger growth that comes from winning in a knowledge-based economy will increase public revenues and therefore ensure the sustainability of those programs. Innovation is the key to winning in those knowledge-based economies. We have to invest in innovation. So, like many things, there's bad news and good news that comes from this. So, bad news or good news? What do you want first? I always like the bad news first, because then you finish on a high. The bad news is we're not alone. Everybody's competing in this. Everybody, pretty much every jurisdiction and company is in a global race for investment and talent, particularly in the knowledge-based industries. And I saw that firsthand when I worked in London at the global headquarters of AstraZeneca, as you heard, the 6th largest innovative pharmaceutical company. And I would literally be sitting on the other side of desks from delegations from pick a country, pretty much any of them, asking and making good propositions or proposals for our money, our investment in bricks and mortar, basic research, developmental research, human resources. And they weren't just from the United States and Western Europe. And they weren't even just from the BRICS nations. Increasingly, they're from high-growth economies in the Middle East and in South Asia. And to be really honest about it, pretty much all of them, but why don't we just say many or most of them, did a much better job at those propositions than the Canadian delegations. Their efforts were aligned, their priorities were clear, they spoke with a single voice regardless of jurisdiction or competing interests, and unqualified political support, sometimes from kind of unbelievably high levels, were presented. All of them are acting on that need to attract investment in innovation. Now the good news. Here's the good news. There's lots of it. Again, people more eloquent than me, people like Rafi and others, will tell you why this place, this province, this city, this metropolitan area is more than capable of winning in this race. And you just you literally look around and you can see it. You can see some of the best research hospitals in the world, some of the best universities in the world. You see full government support in this particular area. You see a highly diverse population, not one that points to a Chinatown over there and a Little Italy over there, but like hundreds of thousands of people that have brought their best perspectives and skills and talents from different parts of the world, and they're in Toronto. And at a time when cities are the economic drivers of the 21st century, and will be the hub of growth, not the only source of growth. It's Ontario that matters, but the GTHA is immensely attractive. Living abroad, we can tell you, it's a place that the world wants to live in. It's the fourth largest market in North America if you include Mexico City. It's a pretty amazing place to be. But there's more, and the more is the great news. The great news is we're strongest in what might be the biggest innovation industry of them all, healthcare. Healthcare, it's the biggest prize. Fortune, I think last year, Fortune magazine said that of the Fortune 50 companies of the time, 23 of them were new entrants in the healthcare industry. 23 companies that would surprise you. Ford, on automated cars being a source of medical information. Samsung, you've got Samsung fridges, television, electronic equipment, moving from consumer devices into healthcare in a major, major way. So what do we have? We've got a single payer system, the largest HMO in the world, $52 billion business with one shareholder, one owner. It's us. It makes vertical collaboration really easy. So the kind of collaboration that can allow you to organize strategically with your supply chain and with other providers, really easy. I don't really mean that. It's difficult, but it's there for the taking. It's there for the taking. And we have hundreds of smart, hardworking, passionate people in this industry in this province already. I've stopped counting the number of innovation centers, incubation labs. It's every hospital, every big hospital, most regional hospitals, every university, most colleges, really, really smart people doing amazing work on this stuff. So we don't need to go find them, they're here. And we've got many, many Ontario companies that are already successful. They're exporting, and not just to the United States, they're exporting to Western Europe. We literally ran into people at an innovation fair in Dubai. Our companies are exporting to the UAE and to China. So we have the stuff that you can't buy. It's all here. The opportunity is endless. So now what we have to do is do it, right? We have to actually move past the notion of talking about it and people like me giving speeches and actually act. And that is where I welcome the vision of the government for taking this on. Squarely, the Health Innovation Council recommendation to create this office, the government heartily accepting those recommendations is just another, albeit small step, but really reflective of the vision of this government. Why focus on healthcare? So again, you've told us it's important, but what do I know really? Well, pretty serious thinkers have quantified the healthcare opportunity. IBM, if we had graphs behind us, or if we had slides behind us, I would show a graph that I actually borrowed from Zaina, because I loved it so much when she presented it, with attribution. But it was actually IBM who looked at the notion of how industries over time have developed their own systems reflective of the individual country, economic system, political system, opportunities before them. And those industries have created a certain level of efficiencies, which has got us where we are today. Some of it is really quite powerful. Well, we're in a different place now. It was a result of incredibly rapidly advancing technology. We're entering a time of system of systems, an area or a time when systems themselves will be working with each other. And so if you look at the efficiencies in the high growth sectors as they stand now, it tells an interesting tale, not just of where things are at, but where they actually could be in the future. So there would be a slide behind me that shows on the vertical axis industries by their proportion of system inefficiency. In other words, which industries actually have a fair amount of inefficiencies in them? Which industries are the ones that have the most opportunity for change to realize the potential of those inefficiencies? And then on the horizontal, it had the proportion that those efficiencies or those industries were of the total economic value in our globe, right? So think about it. So if you're in the top right-hand corner, there's lots of inefficiencies that you could rectify and therefore realize opportunity in that particular industry. And the industry is really important in the global economic tale. And do you know what's up in that corner in a big red circle? Healthcare. Healthcare. Not entirely by itself, but it's big. And so IBM labeled it the $5.2 trillion challenge. Opportunity, right? That is the, whether it's 5.2 or 4.9 is irrelevant. The point is that is a massive opportunity presented by healthcare industry, an industry in which we are really, if not uniquely so, certainly very, very positively placed to win. So what's our office going to do as part of this? I walked into an empty office at the end of September. There's no furniture, there is no people, no anything. And then I got a gift. He's sitting over there, so I'm going to embarrass him. I do this every speech. So Jovan Madek. I tell you, I warn you, right? Anyway, Jovan came over. He was the secretary at OHIC. And not only is he smart and hardworking, but brought all the insight that came from that council work, and it was really, really important. And I also have to thank Bill Mantell from Ministry of Research and Innovation, because he was the guy who made the secondment happen. So you should get the applause. And I'm going to round this out because Marion's at our table. So Marion, as you heard, is from the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services. So my job was structured within health. So I report to the Deputy Minister of Health. I have a formal dotted line into the Ministry of Research and Innovation and a formal working relationship with Government and Consumer Services. So that in itself, for the Government of Ontario, is pretty, well, any government is pretty impressive. So they've actually structured the job in a way to work through those silos. So thanks to Jovan, but also to Bill and Marion, because I actually think that we're going to get stuff done on this. All right, so the first 90 days we spent time really on fundamental organizational development stuff, like what should the purpose of our group be? What should the priorities be? We're going to have a shorter list of priorities, not a longer list, because we keep saying we're going to have impact and judge us that way. So we can't focus on everything or we won't get anything done. Fundamental organizational development. What kind of people do we need? What skills and capabilities should we hire? What structure do we need? What are the processes we have to live within and optimize, especially in government? And then how much time can I spend out there meeting and building relationships with people? And the answer is as much as I can. So first 90 days, the vast majority of that time was spent out on the road, in Chatham, Kent, in St. Catharines at Niagara, in Mackenzie, at South Lake, different places around Ontario, because one of the jokes I always use is, I do believe that you get a lot more done if you don't care who gets credit for it. It's a darn good coincidence in this job, because I have authority over no one other than Jovan and a couple of other people that have volunteered to be on our team. I mean, look, Peter Pisters from UHN, Barry McClellan from Sunnybrook, David Williams at South Lake. These folks don't report to me, so neither do colleagues around the ministry executive table. So the only way we will achieve our objectives is if we get people to collaborate. And you can't collaborate without relationships of trust. You can have those without relationships, and you can't have relationships unless you get to meet people. So that's where we spent a lot of our time. And so far it seems to have worked. We came up with a purpose to drive collaboration across the healthcare system to accelerate the adoption and diffusion of innovative health technologies with three objectives. One, improve patient outcomes. So that's in accordance with the Patients First strategy from the ministry. Two, add value to the system. It has to be cost effective. And three, create jobs in Ontario. And it's that third bit that we think distinguishes us from lots of those other smart, hardworking, passionate people. We really circled the create jobs in Ontario bit. The priorities, you will recognize them, and I'm happy to talk about them in more detail in Q&A if people are interested. But first priority is to create the pathways to the adoption and diffusion of innovation. So again, we have a $52 billion single-payer system. It's a monopsony. If you look at the demand side of this discussion, if you can create any kind of pull through the system, think about the impact that would have for the companies that are supplying into that system. So we are going to look at removing the kinds of hurdles and barriers that exist to create that pathway, which quickly gets you the second priority, procurement of innovation. So procurement in most jurisdictions, certainly with many businesses, if not all of them, is seen as a vehicle for innovation. It's to actually procure the types of things that will allow your company to grow or your enterprise to grow and innovate through time. We need to do that in Ontario. And as the Health Innovation Council said, and in fact the Premier spoke about it in MEDIC, there you are, we need to move to value-based procurement, strategic procurement. It has to happen. The opportunities are immense. People want to do that. And so we will help people do that. We have the supply chain management review process now underway. It's co-chaired by Marion and Mike Weir from the, I guess co-sponsored is the language, co-sponsored by Marion and Mike Weir from the Ministry of Health. There's an expert panel in place with some pretty impressive people. Marion and Mike are ex officio, I'm ex officio. So again, we're working across the silos to really look at what we could do on the procurement side generally, but also in particular with respect to innovation. The third priority is the number one priority of healthcare systems, not just Ontario, but around the world. We call it better care closer to home. It's the notion of getting healthcare to people, as opposed to making people constantly come to the bricks and mortar of the local institution, sometimes not so local. Our lens on this is how do you do that using the enabling technologies like virtual health or digital and mobile health. So that is ripe. That is ripe, fertile territory for Ontario companies, which are doing this in many parts around the world, just not in Ontario yet. Fourth will be enabling, empowering really Ontarians with digital technology. So having Ontarians and their circle of care own and use their personal health information in a way that allows them to make better, faster healthcare decisions. It's the next generation of the work on electronic health records. It's really exciting. You'll be hearing more of that. And the fifth, which is equally exciting, is enhancing healthcare for Aboriginals. As you see, recently in Ontario, but frankly across the country, the outcomes for our First Nations people are atrocious. And if you look at how you can use new technologies to enhance those outcomes, it gets pretty exciting pretty quickly. We're going to build a health innovation ecosystem. We're not going to run a mini Dragon's Den. There's going to be startups, there's going to be scaled up companies. The role of the multinational companies is important, research and academia. We're going to be looking at the broader ecosystem. I'm going to talk to you in a minute about our Health Technologies Fund, and it's very important, and we're really excited by that. But we have a bigger piece of work to help drive people to, and that's build that health innovation ecosystem. I said startups, scalability, scalability, scalability. That's our focus. We want to get the company, we don't have a problem building startups, or starting startups, I guess. We want the companies to go from 2 employees to 10, from 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000. That's what we want in Ontario. We want the next Genentech to come out of this unbelievably fertile ground we have around us in Ontario. Our role will be as catalyst. We're not going to do much. We don't do much. But it's really to inject innovation into the conversation, frankly, push the envelope, act as brokers. You're going to hear in a minute about our innovation brokers. Just really work to get people working together. We're going to leverage what already works well. We're not going to create another institution to sit over here. We're going to leverage what already works, kind of on a sandbox approach. The idea being that if people are working better together, you'll get a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. And again, I truly believe that can happen. We're talking about growing world-leading companies. That's not going to happen just on the back of the Ontario healthcare market. Exports will be a big component of this. So you will hear us as abroad, for those of you watching abroad, you will hear us come as champions of these great Ontario companies abroad. Our health minister is particularly adept at this, having been the trade minister in a previous portfolio, and obviously being so knowledgeable and enthusiastic about this one. It's formidable to have him out there as champion of what Ontario does. And of course, for those of you who've seen the Premier, she's no slouch either. So we've got a great opportunity now to have strong political voices helping you, companies in Ontario, export your products abroad. And we'll champion the move to value-based care. We will look to use outcomes-based targets, help any way we can to give healthcare, develop a more integrated approach to healthcare. The ministry is all over this, and we're going to play our part in that. And the last piece, which is certainly not the least important, and that's everything we do, we will put patients first, just as the ministry does. A friend of ours said, a person not involved in the healthcare industry, but pretty smart, listened to me give my little speech at one point, and she looked at me and said, "So if I'm a patient, what am I going to see that's different as a result of your work in, say, 2 years?" I'm like, all right, well, I'm done. That's a great question, right? Probably governs every one of us in the ministry. And that is our aspirational goal. I don't know, about 2 years, we'll do our best. But when I say put patients first, I mean that in every sense, right? Let's think about what technologies we can use to make the patient experience better, faster, provide to better decisions, provide a more sustainable healthcare system. And in many ways, that's our ultimate goal. So honestly, people at the office, I don't know who it was, but someone put that up on the wall above the photocopier. It was perfect. So we see that every day in the office. So to have an impact on any of this stuff, we have objectives, we have tactics and tools, and I am very pleased to tell you about 3 of them right now. As you heard, the Government of Ontario accepted all 6 recommendations from the Ontario Health Innovation Council. The creation of this office was the first. We're now working quickly to execute on the remaining recommendations, and as a result, I'm here before you with some great news. First, I can announce the creation and launch of our Health Technologies Fund, the $20 million fund that will help us in many ways with the work we're doing. And it is good. It's really pretty exciting. It's designed to support pre-market evaluations and early adoption, so we really circle that word adoption, of innovative Ontario health technologies. And we're going to invest $5 million for each of the next 4 years to accelerate innovation across multiple healthcare settings. As I said, it's exciting. We're all excited by this, and given the level of interest I've heard out there, others are really looking forward to it. So we will begin accepting applications for this on July 4th. So I know that's ahead, but now we're going to start talking about it, and people can start thinking about what they're going to do with respect to the fund, but know that July 4th is the magic day for you. And as I said, we're really focusing on having the discipline in our office to focus on fewer priorities rather than more. Our fund is no exception. So while we have 5 priorities that we're working on, we have chosen better care closer to home to be the focal point for this fund. So it will support home and community care, as we've talked about, through the virtual, digital, mobile technologies, and ultimately help us work towards a better coordinated, more integrated healthcare system with better patient care for our Ontarians. Now, in investing in the fund, we also want to model those behaviors I've been talking about. You've heard the word collaboration come up a lot, and that's the most fundamental behavior. So eligibility for funding is actually going to require that people come forward as health innovation teams, not as individual companies. So depending on the application stream, that health innovation team may consist of an Ontario-based health technology business. So that means it could be small or medium-sized business. It also could be a multinational business operating within Ontario, as long as more than half of their R&D and manufacturing occurs in the province. It may also include a health procurement professional in a provincially funded health delivery organization. It could include a researcher who has expertise in research and evaluation, design, or implementation, and most importantly, whoever's going to be using the technology, such as a clinician, a doctor, or a patient. Those will be the components of a health innovation team. Now, our fund is going to have 3 streams: prototype, pre-market evaluation, and early adoption. In stream 1, prototype, innovators should apply if they're looking to test a new product or a feature of their product. In their health innovation teams, they'll have the opportunity to work with a healthcare provider or providers to get the valuable input on their design that's required. The teams must have a viable business plan, including a feasible study and problem validation, and the end result will be a new technology that is market ready with proof of its potential value in Ontario's healthcare system. In the pre-market evaluation stream, the second stream, innovators will work with healthcare providers in their health innovation teams to test the feasibility of the use of their product on a day-to-day basis, so really in situ evidence generation. And this could include training and changes in workflows and daily routines. Activities from this stream should result in the development of an evidence package. So we talked about how important that was. So in your home jurisdiction, to be able to talk about your evidence that you've generated in the largest HMO in the world, for example. So an evidence package that can support procurement of the product into the healthcare provider's hospital, clinic, or a home care setting. So it's not just institutional, if you will. It's also looking at the home care setting as part of the overall priority. The stream also includes an economic analysis that examines the efficiency of the technology and potential cost savings to the healthcare system, and a plan that outlines the systems and processes required for wide-scale adoption. So cost effectiveness and adoption. Stream 3 is early adoption. So here, the Health Innovation team will refine their evidence package and develop a plan to help facilitate the adoption of their product in multiple healthcare locations. This includes ensuring strategic value-based procurement. Results from this stream will include successful adoption at those multiple healthcare locations and a report on the change and knowledge transfer required to successfully adopt the new technology. So that notion of the behavioral change, the types of activities that need to undergo to actually adopt the technology is a real focus of this stream. Now, health innovation teams can only apply for one stream at a time, so bear that in mind. And I also want to say that for the purposes of this program, that medicines, vaccines, and drug efficacy research will not be supported. It's also very important to have the right level review in these types of applications. So for our fund, expert panels made up of business and healthcare leaders, clinicians, health technology assessment professionals, and procurement specialists will review each proposal. Panel membership is going to depend on the types of proposals we receive. So for example, if we receive applications with an equal proportion of medical devices, phone apps, or IT platforms, we'll have one panel to review all the applications. If there's greater demand in the apps area, we'll develop a panel of expert reviewers who have particular expertise in that area. We will also have technical and patient reviews incorporated into the province. Into the process. So on that point, we really do want to hear and get the value of the patient perspective. We don't want this to be a situation we've kind of put ourselves up somewhere in a closed-door situation, just decided we know what's good for the patient. So we will make sure that that's incorporated into our process. The expert panel will be looking for high-quality, effective, scalable technologies that fulfill those objectives of our purpose that I talked about. So improve patient outcomes, add value to the system, and grow jobs in Ontario. And most importantly, the fund is going to help facilitate better care for Ontarians closer to home. Now, innovation brokers has been one of the most widely discussed recommendations of the Health Innovation Council. The recommendation was that we create and hire innovation brokers to accelerate the adoption and diffusion across the province. Now, they didn't give us much guidance as to what a broker should do, but had lots of conversations along the way, and the council members have been immensely helpful on this front. And I'm really pleased to announce that we're ready to start hiring our innovation brokers. So our office will be issuing a request for expressions of interest beginning on May 16th for qualified and interested candidates as the first step in fulfilling those positions. I'm really excited by these roles. I think for those of you who heard me speak before, I share your excitement that this is actually something quite different. From my personal experiences in the political and business world, I know that there is immense value in the community representative or the community liaison function. And whether it's really understanding particular issues for the purpose of policy making, or frankly, understanding local customer for purposes of generating revenue, what is consistent right across the board is the impact that these folks can have on the success of a social enterprise. They know who lives in the community. They work with them. They will know about, in this case, the healthcare providers, what's important to them, how to do business in that area, what the values are of the local community. But above all else, they're going to bring the insight into the people in those communities that will help ensure that the work that we're doing from the center, if you will, not only is the work that's relevant to the people in the communities, but is done in the way that they would expect them to be done. So it is the what and it is the how. And those two components will be really, really important if we're actually going to, remember I said, we're only going to succeed if we engender collaboration across everyone. So I've often been asked what these people will do specifically, and generally the answer is they're going to work with Ontario's innovators and healthcare providers to foster an even greater culture of innovation across the province than we already have. They're going to create and enhance connections, not just within the communities, but amongst themselves, so laterally across the province, and from the ministries into the community, and the community back into the ministries. So sometimes that's going to happen through me or colleagues that work in the office with me, but sometimes it might even be directly. They're more than a network. A network to me connotes a kind of lateralness, a one-dimensional aspect to the work. They're brokers. There will be lateral networks, there will be vertical networks, and it will be fluid. It will be dynamic. And I really, really believe, as the council did, that these could be true linchpins in accelerating the adoption and diffusion of our health technologies into the system. So in particular, for those of you who are considering putting your hand up, they're going to help remove the barriers to the scalability and adoption of innovation. They're going to link our growing Ontario-based health technology companies with opportunities, with key players, and with supports. As I said, they'll be our eyes and ears in the local community. Conversely, they're going to be the proverbial person on the other end of the phone, or maybe it'll happen literally, when people from those communities call with questions about how to navigate through the Ministry of Health or other ministries in Ontario. They're going to be the ones to articulate or help articulate the health priorities down to the innovation community. So hopefully as we go forward, those who are looking to innovate will have their ideas coincide with purpose, with the priorities of the Ministry of Health. They're going to inform the healthcare providers about the companies that are doing the exciting work around them. It's quite interesting how, as many people as there are working on health and innovation, I won't identify folks in particular, but it is pretty incredible that you will meet people who have unbelievable ideas that can really help hospitals or healthcare providers, and they're a couple of kilometers from hospitals who are desperately looking for people with really innovative ideas to help hospitals and healthcare providers. And it's just an interesting dynamic in the province right now. So we feel that these brokers, as others are working now, will really help bring those people together. So how are we going to hire the brokers, and who are they? So we want professionals. We want professionals who know the health sector. We want people who know Ontario's business climate. We want people with extensive networks and meaningful relationships with healthcare providers, as well as the innovators and entrepreneurs, and the innovation centers and incubation labs that exist in a particular region. We want them to be the same type of smart, hard-working, passionate professionals of the type I've met literally hundreds in my first 6 months in this role. But most of all, we want people to have that insight that I described and the sensibility to be proactive as we seek to optimize our investment in them and our investment in the healthcare system. So insight combined with that proactivity is what's most important. We don't expect those people to quit their day jobs. In fact, we want people who are already highly skilled and probably gainfully employed. They're going to be part-time contractors, not employees, and we're going to expect 40% or a couple days a week of their time to fulfill the role. They could be a leader of an organization, a research team, a consortium, or based in the broader public sector. And as I've been saying from the beginning, we desire to leverage what already works. So if in fact they sit on top of a brokering group that's already doing good work, that might be the best thing we can do. So as a result, it could be someone leading that brokering organization. In other words, there are different options, and we are open to the type of person or group that will help ensure that we fulfill and realize the potential that we have before us. So to find out more and apply, I invite you to visit our new website, which brings me to the final announcement. We've just launched our website. So you can find us at ontario.ca/health innovation. So ontario.ca/health innovation. And what you see there is just the beginning. I truly believe that websites are organic, and they will evolve as we learn more about what we're doing and get the benefit of people out there and their input into the website. So now you'll find information about OCHIS itself, our office, the Health Technologies Fund, and the innovation brokers. But eventually, I think it's going to be an information resource for everyone, and even a place where where networks can be built or brokering can happen between healthcare providers and innovators themselves. So please go out, check the site often as we go forward in this together. We're welcome to any and all feedback. So for those of you keeping score, we'll be accepting innovation brokers applications on ontario.ca/healthinnovation beginning on May 16. You'll be able to access submission materials for the Health Technologies Fund on July 4. And I'm relying on people like you to tell me what our new website could and should be anytime you want to. There's a real innovation imperative in this province. It's important to get it right for us and for our children. And I told you I love this job, and that's in part because I believe we can actually make a difference. And we're going to do that in healthcare, one of the biggest job and wealth creators of the 21st century, and one which we are well positioned, maybe even uniquely so, to win. And there will be a tipping point. You know, we don't have to change everything. With all that's around us and all the people that are looking to get this done, we're just going to have to change a few things. And I truly believe that then we will have that viable ecosystem and thriving Ontario health tech companies that are growing and world leading. And our band of merry warriors, aided by a short list of priorities and hundreds of smart, passionate, hardworking professionals out there, are going to get this job done. And we're going to use our Health Technologies Fund, our brokers, and our website as three principal and exciting tools to get that job done for you and for all Ontarians. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill, for choosing our podium to make not one, but so many meaningful announcements. So we have time for literally one question. So no pressure, but make it an exceptional question. So we have volunteers with mics. Please put your hand up. They will bring you the microphone, and Bill will answer one very exciting question. Any takers? Have I scared everybody away? Okay. Well, you gave them everything they need. Okay, sir.
Only
one question.
So, Bill, you mentioned adoption, and you talked about export. And I know that export is really key for your success.
Yep.
You have one barrier, it's called the CIOs of hospitals.
Yeah.
We are told that they are disincentivized to adopt new technology. In the United States, for example, 15 to 20% has to come for born here, developed here. What can you do about it?
Yeah. So there's a longer version of the speech, believe it or not, and that digs in on the procurement issue. So Rafi's question was, one of the biggest barriers we have are the CIOs of hospitals who frankly aren't incented to take the risk inherent in adopting innovative technologies. And in the United States and other countries, it's actually quite explicit, where often they are told not just to procure innovation, but sometimes evilly to do it from local companies. So we know about that. We've heard it a lot, and we have our circle around that one. What we're doing is driving behavioral change. And fundamental, there are a couple of things that are fundamental to that, as you know. One is we need to have champions wherever they are in the system, and I think we have those. But the second thing is to make sure that the individual objectives and frankly incentives line up to all these big speeches that are coming out of the center. So if we're serious about growing this health technology ecosystem and growing these companies in Ontario, and we are the only we're a single payer system, so there is only one place where these things can be procured. We need to make sure that the people doing those procurement are incented in the right way to make the decisions that line up with that objective. We just have to. So I don't have a specific answer yet, but it is top of mind. And the other thing I will say is kind of a shout out generally to people that I'm working with is I haven't met anybody who says what you're trying to do or what the government's trying to do is a bad idea. And that happens out there. It's happened to me, it's happened to others in the corporate environment too. Sometimes there are just blockers. I truly believe that we don't have any blockers on this file. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. If it were easy, I mean, we wouldn't be here today and I wouldn't have this job. But on questions like that, I've already heard ideas from people that you might not expect to be putting forward such ideas on how you could do things differently to create those incentives. So, again, it's not easy, and there are bad days with good days, as there always are in any amazing job. But the interesting part is I find everybody lined up as solution-oriented. They're on that side of the room, and that really leaves me optimistic. So that's a great question, and I hope we get there. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. It's my pleasure now to welcome Lasha Babiak to the podium from Johnson & Johnson to provide the thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Bill, on behalf of everyone here today, I want to thank you for your inspiring message. Innovative health technologies save lives, improve quality of life for patients and families, and increase productivity. They are essential to ensure the sustainability of our healthcare system and future growth of our economy. In your words, countries that innovate prosper. Companies that innovate prosper. As a leader in healthcare innovation for over a century, we at Johnson & Johnson congratulate the Government of Ontario for its policies to make the province a centre for new and innovative health technologies, to foster their development and uptake, and to focus on their potential to improve health outcomes. We invest at J&J significantly in research in Ontario and throughout the world, and have seen how it is essential to marshal large and small enterprises, to align government policies, and to attract the best talent in order to create a thriving innovation hub. We're delighted with J&J's expansion in Ontario with the upcoming launch of J-Labs at Toronto. Bill, we are very fortunate as a province to have you in this critical role as Chief Health Innovation Strategist, and we look forward to collaborating with you and the government on advancing your important agenda. The work you will be doing will make such an important and positive impact on Ontario, from jobs, health benefits, and health system sustainability, and generally making Ontarians' lives better. So delighted to see you primed into action. Thank you again for sharing your thoughts today.
A sincere thank you once again to Johnson & Johnson, our event sponsor, for making this event possible. We're almost there, folks, close to the finish line. I would also like to thank the National Post as our print media sponsor, Rogers TV as our local broadcaster. I'd also like to thank MediaEvents.ca, Canada's online event space, for live webcasting today's event to thousands of viewers around the world. And although our club has been around since 1903, we have moved into the 21st century and are active on social media. Please follow us on Twitter at Empire_Club and visit us online at www.empireclub.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Finally, please join us again soon. We have some excellent events scheduled in the coming weeks. On May the 30th, here at at 1 King West Hotel, we have Thomas G. Wellner, President and Chief Executive Officer of Rivera. And on June the 3rd, we're very excited to have Chief Justice Beverly McLaughlin at the Arcadian Court. So thank you very much for your attendance today. This meeting is now officially adjourned.